On Christmas morning, the house smelled like cinnamon, pine, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, this year would finally feel normal. Snow fell softly outside the windows, settling on the porch like a blanket of peace. Everyone was gathered in the living room, taking their places around the Christmas tree, overloaded with shimmering ornaments and gifts in red and gold wrapping paper. Everyone except one person, my 10-year-old stepson, Ethan. He stood near the window, staring out at the snow-covered yard, his arms crossed tightly over his chest, his small shoulders stiff with something I couldn't read. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. Something he was hiding with more determination than any child his age should ever know. "Sweetie," I said gently, trying to sound cheerful, "your gift is right here. Why don't you come open it?" He didn't turn, not even slightly. My husband, Mark, tried next. "Buddy, come on, everyone's waiting." But Ethan didn't move. The entire family fell silent, exchanging confused glances. His grandmother paused mid-sip of her coffee. His uncle lowered the camera he'd been aiming. The merry rustling of wrapping paper stopped. And then Ethan spoke. His voice was small, quiet enough that I almost missed it, but each word hit like a glass splinter. "I don't want it." Mark blinked, baffled. "Why not?" Ethan finally turned. His eyes, usually warm, curious, lively, looked cold, afraid, betrayed. "Because I know what's inside, and I don't want anything from her." Her. He didn't look at me, but the room did. My chest tightened. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I whispered. "You haven't even opened it." But Ethan shook his head sharply, stepping backward, as if I might come closer. "I don't want your Christmas lies," he said. "I don't want your gifts. I know what you did." My blood ran cold. I felt Mark subtly stiffen beside me. His hand twitched, as if fighting the urge to interrupt, to stop Ethan from speaking, but not quickly enough. "What you did," Ethan repeated, louder this time, his voice cracking under the weight of whatever he thought he knew. "Dad, why didn't you tell her? Why did you pretend everything was normal? She should know." Mark's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. "Know what?" But Ethan didn't answer me. Instead, he looked at his father with an expression no child should ever have, an expression of deep betrayal. "Did you tell her yet?" he whispered. "Or were you never going to?" Mark swallowed hard. "Ethan," he said quietly, "this isn't the time." "Yes, it is. It's the only time. Because you said—" He stopped abruptly, his breath catching. "You said Christmas would be the day we tell her. You promised." The room fell dead silent. Every heartbeat seemed to echo off the walls. "Tell me what?" My hands trembled slightly as I looked between them. My husband, pale as snow, my stepson, trembling with fear and anger, and the unopened present sitting under the glowing lights like a bomb. "Mark?" I whispered. "What is he talking about?" But before Mark could answer, Ethan burst into tears, silent, shaking sobs that made my chest ache. "I thought you were going to tell her," he said. I thought she deserved to know." Mark reached toward him, but Ethan backed away again, wiping his tears with the sleeve of his sweater. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered, "but I can't pretend anymore. I can't, not after what I saw." The room froze. The family watched in stunned silence, unsure whether to speak or flee the scene entirely. "What you saw?" I asked slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan, what did you see?" He lifted his gaze to mine, and the moment our eyes met, something inside me tightened. because the fear in his expression wasn't childish. It wasn't imagined. It was the fear of someone who had seen something he wasn't supposed to see, something he couldn't unsee. His lips parted, trembling. But before the words came out, Mark cut him off sharply. "Ethan, don't!" His voice cracked like a whip, harsh, cold, desperate. Ethan flinched. I stared at my husband in disbelief. "What are you hiding?" I whispered. Mark exhaled shakily. "It's not what you think." "How would you know what I think?" I asked, my voice rising with fear I could no longer hide. "He says he saw something you promised to tell me about, something you planned to reveal today on Christmas, and now you want to shut him up?" Mark closed his eyes. "Please," he murmured, "not like this." "Like what?" I demanded. Ethan looked between us, two adults standing on the edge of a cliff we didn't know we were on until now. And then he said it, the words that shattered the Christmas morning. "I saw Dad talking to the woman in the backyard last night, the one who looked exactly like you." For a moment, the world around me simply stopped. The crackling fireplace, the warm lights, the glitter on the wrapping paper, everything froze, suspended in a silence so sharp it pierced. My breath caught midair as Ethan's words settled, heavy and impossible in the room. A woman. In our backyard. Last night. A woman who looked exactly like me. Mark's face turned ghostly pale, and he opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. He stared at his son as if silently begging him to take the words back, rewind time, bury the truth under the snow outside. But Ethan didn't flinch. He looked at me with that small, breaking expression that only children have when they're caught in the middle of adult lies. His fingers twisted nervously in the hem of his sweater. "I wasn't supposed to be awake," he whispered, "but I heard something outside, like voices, and I came downstairs. I saw Dad through the window. He was talking to someone near the fence. I thought it was you. You had the same coat, the same hair, everything." My pulse throbbed in my neck. "Ethan," I said softly, forcing myself to breathe, "are you sure it looked like me? Maybe it was just a shadow, or—" "It was you," he said firmly, shaking his head. "I mean, it looked like you, but when Dad saw me, he got scared. He told her to leave. She ran. He locked the door, and when he came back inside, he pretended nothing happened." Mark finally stepped forward, his voice low, strained, trembling. "Please, let me explain." But something in me recoiled. Every instinct screamed to step back, to put space between us. The room watched, family frozen in a mix of fear, curiosity, and horror, as if we were unraveling a secret that had been eating through the floors beneath us. I swallowed hard, keeping my gaze locked on him. "Explain," I said. Mark's jaw clenched. He closed his eyes, took a shaky breath, and rubbed the back of his neck. His tell, the gesture he always did when he was hiding something. Every part of me tightened in anticipation of the impact. "It wasn't what Ethan thinks," he said. "Then what was it?" I asked. Mark hesitated for one beat too long. Ethan whispered, as if afraid the truth might hurt me more if spoken loudly. "Dad told her, she can't know you're here." The room erupted in whispers, stunned, confused, horrified. I heard someone gasp. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." The Christmas lights suddenly felt too bright, too cheerful, too wrong in a moment so heavy. I steadied myself. "And who," I said slowly, "was the woman who looks like me, and why did you tell her I can't know she's here?" Mark opened his eyes, bloodshot, tired, filled with a fear I had never seen in him before. "It's complicated." I almost laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Complicated? You're talking to a woman who looks like me in the backyard in the middle of the night, and that's complicated? He stepped toward me, but Ethan grabbed my arm instinctively, pulling me back, like a small guardian who understood danger before adults did. My heart ached at the gesture. "Don't," Ethan said to him, his voice trembling. Mark stopped. His shoulders rose and fell with a deep exhale. "All right, you want the truth? You'll get it. But not here." I frowned. "What do you mean, not here?" He looked around the room, at his mother, his brother, his niece, everyone holding their breath. "I'm not saying this in front of them." I narrowed my eyes. "Why? Because it's something you don't want them to hear, or because it's something I won't forgive?" Mark didn't answer. The silence was damning. I grabbed Ethan's hand, grounding myself with the warmth of his small fingers. "Fine," I said coldly. "Then we go somewhere else. You, me, and Ethan. And you tell me everything." "No," Mark said immediately. "Not Ethan. He doesn't need to be involved in this." "He already is," I shot back. "He saw the woman. He was the one who brought it up. He deserves to know why." But Mark shook his head, suddenly more panicked than before. "Please," he whispered. "Just you." The fear in his voice wasn't fear of me. It was fear of the secret. Ethan tightened his grip on my arm. "I don't want you to go with him," he said, voice cracking. "Mom, please don't go alone." He called me Mom. He never called me that. Not without hesitation, not without confusion, not without looking at Mark first. The word hit me hard. I brushed a hand over his hair, fighting tears. "I'm not going anywhere without you," I whispered. "Not today." And that's when Mark finally broke. He pressed his palms into his temples, groaning softly. "Fine," he said. "Fine. If you want the truth, then I'll tell you, but once I start, there's no taking it back." I inhaled shakily. "Then start." Mark lifted his gaze, slow, pained, resigned. And in that moment, I realized the truth terrified him more than losing me. He looked straight at Ethan. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone new. Then his eyes moved to me, locking on to mine with a depth of guilt so dark it made my stomach twist. "It was your sister." My breath ripped out of me like someone punched the air from my lungs. The room gasped. Ethan's fingers went stiff in my hand. My what?" I whispered. Mark swallowed hard. "Your sister came here last night." "No," I muttered. "No, that's impossible. She's—" But he cut me off gently, voice cracking under the weight of truth. "She's not dead." The air in the living room felt unnaturally still after my stepson's quiet, almost trembling refusal to touch the gift. The glossy wrapping paper, decorated with tiny silver reindeer, caught the reflection of the fireplace flames, making it look as if it were flickering with some hidden life of its own. Everyone stared at him, but he kept his eyes fixed on the floor, his small hands curling into fists on his knees. His grandmother tried to coax him with a gentle smile. His aunt laughed awkwardly. His cousins exchanged confused looks, but the boy didn't move. And then I noticed something. His chin was trembling. It wasn't stubbornness. It was fear. I felt my heart clench, sensing that this moment was bigger than a simple tantrum. My husband leaned toward him, whispering something too softly for any of us to catch. The boy only shook his head violently. My husband's jaw tightened. Panic or anger, something sharp flashed across his eyes. And when he turned toward me, his forced smile didn't reach his face. I had seen that look before. the same tightness around the eyes he always had when he was on the edge of losing control. But this wasn't like the other times. This time, something else was layered beneath the mask, something he didn't want me to see. I tried to speak, but before I could, the boy's gaze finally lifted, and when our eyes met, I felt something inside me go cold. It wasn't the look of a child being difficult, it was the look of someone who had learned to fear a truth too heavy for his age, something that had been whispered to him in shadows. I realized then that he wasn't refusing the gift itself, he was refusing what it represented. But what could a wrapped box possibly symbolize that would terrify him like this? When the rest of the family resumed chatter, forced, awkward, fragmented, my husband pulled me aside under the pretense of helping him carry desserts from the kitchen. But as soon as we were alone, his expression snapped. He grabbed the counter with both hands, leaning forward as if fighting an internal battle. I asked him what was going on, why his son was so afraid, but he only said, "Drop it, please, it's Christmas. Don't make this worse." The more he avoided my questions, the more the pit in my stomach grew. He wasn't protecting the boy, he was protecting himself. And yet the present still sat untouched in the center of the room, glowing ominously in the firelight. Something about it pulled at me with a strange, quiet urgency. If a child was terrified of it, then whatever was inside mattered. Deeply. The boy's avoidance wasn't random. It was deliberate, meaningful, taught. Later that evening, after everyone had laughed and the house settled into uneasy silence, I found the gift still sitting on the coffee table. My husband had gone to put his son to bed. I could hear muffled voices upstairs, the soft, pleading tone of a child, the controlled, almost tense voice of a man who was trying too hard to sound calm. I approached the box and gently lifted it. It was heavier than I expected, the weight strangely concentrated, as if the object inside was smaller than the box itself, but dense, important. My heartbeat quickened. I didn't want to open something meant for a child, but the fear in his eyes, that fear changed everything. I loosened the ribbon. The floor creaked. I froze. My husband stood in the doorway, watching me. No anger this time, just a quiet, exhausted resignation, like he already knew he couldn't stop what was coming. He stepped forward slowly, then stopped halfway, rubbing his temples with both hands as if physically pained. "It's not what you think," he whispered, but the truth was written all over his face. I opened the box, and the moment I saw what was inside, small, plain, wrapped in brown paper with handwriting I didn't recognize, my hands began to shake. The wrapping had my stepson's name on it, but the script was old, faded, and definitely not my husband's. I looked up, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Who sent this?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "Someone who shouldn't have." A chill ran through me. That answer wasn't vague, it was protective. Defensive, terrified. I lifted the inner package, feeling the weight of the secret in my palms. Before I could open it, my husband gently took it from me and set it back into the box, as if it were glass about to shatter. Then he sat on the couch, leaned forward, and buried his face in his hands. "For years," he said, voice cracking, "I prayed this day wouldn't come. I waited." He lifted his head, eyes wet but determined. "That gift," he whispered, "is from his mother." My blood ran cold. His ex-wife had died 5 years ago, but the package was dated just 3 months earlier. I felt the room tilt slightly, as if the air itself had dropped in temperature. His mother? His dead mother? My mind tried to organize the pieces into something rational, but they kept slipping, rearranging into something darker, more impossible. My husband sat hunched over, elbows on his knees, fingers pressed to his forehead as though holding his skull together. His voice, when he finally spoke again, was hoarse and barely audible. "She wrote it before she died," he said. "She asked someone to hold it, to deliver it later, to him, when he was old enough. I stared at him, searching for honesty, searching for the line between explanation and excuse. Old enough for what? I whispered. He looked up, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not frustration, not anger, not guilt. Fear. To know the truth. A cold knot formed in my stomach. What truth? He didn't answer. Not right away. He stood, walked to the mantelpiece, and stared at the framed photos. Our wedding picture, the first family Christmas we'd spent together, his son smiling with missing baby teeth, me holding his hand. Moments frozen in time, innocent in a way that now felt painfully fragile. Then he said, very quietly, that I'm the reason she died. I stopped breathing. The fire crackled softly behind him, casting his silhouette into sharp lines that made him look even more haunted. I waited, gripping the edge of the couch as though it were the only thing anchoring me to the room. When she got sick, he continued, I was working all the time. I missed the signs, dismissed them. I thought she was exaggerating. I told her she just needed rest, that she worried too much. By the time I forced her to get checked, it was too late. His voice broke. He turned away, hiding the way his shoulders trembled. She wrote that letter for him, not for me, not for anyone else, just him. She wanted him to know who she was, what she loved, what she feared, and what she forgave. Forgive. The word hit me like a sharp inhale. Forgiveness was never simple, and it certainly wasn't something a child should have to unpack alone. I approached him slowly, waiting for him to pull away, but he didn't. He just stood there, shaking, his hands limp at his sides. I touched his arm gently. You think she blames you? I asked. He laughed, a short, broken sound with no humor. I blame me, and I know that if he reads that letter, he'll blame me too. I let the silence sit between us, thick and trembling. So, you tried to hide it, I said, understanding dawning with a heavy ache. From him, from all of us. He nodded once. Because I can live with hating myself, but I can't live with him hating me. The house felt unbearably still, as if every piece of furniture, every garland, every ornament was holding its breath. The box sat on the coffee table like a dormant storm, quiet, contained, but dangerous in its potential. But why is he afraid of it? He doesn't even know what's inside. My husband blinked, and something in his expression shifted, pain twisting into something sharper, something closer to dread. He knows more than you think. I frowned. What do you mean? He hesitated, chewing on his bottom lip the way he always did when he was debating whether to lie or confess. Finally, he exhaled and said, He found another letter. Months ago. One I didn't know she left. The pieces clicked together with frightening clarity. The sudden nightmares, the questions he never asked before, the way he watched his father, carefully, cautiously, searching for something he didn't understand, but desperately needed to. I whispered, What did the other letter say? He squeezed his eyes shut. She warned him. A chill stabbed down my spine. About what? About this, he said. About the day another package would come. About the day he'd have to decide what kind of man he wanted to grow into. And about the truth that might ruin everything. I stared at him, throat tight, fear pulsing in my veins. What truth could ruin everything besides what you already told me? He turned toward me slowly, his face pale, drawn, almost hollow. That she didn't trust me at the end, that she believed there was more to her death, and that she suspected someone else was involved. My breath caught. The implications crashed through my mind like ice water. Someone else? I repeated, voice cracking. Who? His answer came out as a whisper so faint, it was almost swallowed by the fire's soft pop. Her brother. The room tilted again. Her brother, who was still alive. Her brother who had disappeared from their lives long before her diagnosis. Her brother who could very well have been the person who delivered the package 3 months ago. Her brother who might still be watching. My husband's face crumpled as he finally finished the confession he'd been hiding for years. She didn't trust me, she didn't trust him. And now her son doesn't trust anyone. He looked at me with eyes full of raw, trembling fear. And I'm terrified he's right. I didn't realize I was backing away from him until my shoulder touched the wall behind me. The room felt smaller now, as if the truth had stolen all the oxygen. My husband watched me with hollow eyes, and for a moment I saw the terrified young man he must have been when she first got sick, grief-stricken, overwhelmed, desperate to fix something that was already too far gone. But there was more he wasn't saying. I could feel it. It hung between us like smoke, dense and suffocating. Why would her brother be involved? I finally asked, trying to steady my voice. I thought they hadn't spoken in years. They hadn't, not until the final months, and she never told me what they discussed, only that he was different. Different how? He swallowed. Angrier. Paranoid. He believed she wasn't getting the treatment she needed. He blamed the doctors, blamed the system, and his jaw clenched hard. He blamed me. A tremor ran through me, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. And now you think he's trying to turn your son against you? I whispered. No, he said slowly, voice cracking. I think he already has. The fire flickered violently in the hearth, as if reacting to the tension that strangled the room. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. But a part of me, a quiet part I didn't want to recognize, wondered if there was a grain of truth in the brother's suspicion. I walked to the window, staring out at the snow-covered yard. The tracks from our footsteps earlier were slowly filling in, becoming softer, quieter, disappearing. Soon, it would be like no one had walked through the snow at all. He said something today, your son. My husband's head snapped up. What did he say? I thought back to the moment, the Christmas morning tension, the unopened present, the way the boy wouldn't look me in the eye. I remembered the tiny tremor in his voice as he whispered something I couldn't understand at the time. He said, "It's starting." My husband went white. Did he tell you what that meant? He asked. I shook my head. No, he shut down when I pressed. He looked terrified. My husband slowly sank back into the armchair, fingers digging into the fabric as if anchoring himself to reality. The other letter, he said quietly. Maybe it explained everything to him. Maybe it told him what he should do when the final message arrived. I felt cold seep into my bones. Do what? He looked up at me, and the raw dread in his eyes made my stomach twist. Choose sides. The words hit me hard, slicing through the already thin thread of calm I tried to hold on to. Choose sides. A child, being forced into a war between a father and a man he barely remembered.
A war his dying mother had somehow anticipated. "What exactly was in the first letter?" I asked. He shook his head. "I never saw it."
"Then how do you know?" "Because of what he asked me." The house creaked softly, as if leaning closer to hear his confession. "He asked me," my husband said, staring numbly at the wall. "Dad, if something happened to Mom, would you tell me the truth?" I froze. The quiet devastation in his voice told me everything. He hadn't known how to answer. Maybe he still didn't. A loud thump echoed from upstairs. We both jerked toward the ceiling. The house fell silent again, but the sound had been real, heavy, sudden. My husband stood up immediately. "He's awake." I grabbed his arm. "Wait, something's wrong. That didn't sound like—" Before I could finish, the floorboards above us creaked again, slowly, deliberately, as if someone were dragging something across the floor. My husband swallowed. He never moves around at night. Shadows jittered on the ceiling from the fireplace's glow, stretching and contracting in eerie rhythm with our breathing. I could feel my heart pounding hard enough to shake my ribs. "What if he's reading the letter again?" I whispered. His eyes flicked toward the stairs. The box. The unopened gift. The message that wasn't meant for us. The storm brewing between past and present. "We need to go up there," he said, but something in me hesitated, a deep instinctual fear that the boy wasn't alone, that the brother, the ghost of the past, or the weight of the mother's final mill, had crept into that room with him. Still, we moved, step by step. The stairs groaned beneath our weight. At the top landing, the hallway stretched before us, dimly lit by the tiny warm glow of the nightlight plugged into the far wall. The door to the boys' room was slightly ajar, a sliver of cold light spilling across the floorboards. My husband reached for the doorknob, and that's when we heard it. A voice. A whisper. Soft, rhythmic, almost coaxing. But it wasn't the boy. And it wasn't my husband. It was a man's voice. Low, almost too low to catch, but unmistakably there on the other side of the thin wooden door. My breath hitched. My husband stiffened, fingers tightening around the knob. "What is he saying?" I breathed. My husband leaned in, trying to catch the words, and when he finally did, his face drained of all color. "He's saying," my husband whispered, "you don't have to be afraid. I'll tell you what really happened to your mother." I felt my blood turn to ice, because the voice didn't belong to a stranger or to a ghost. It belonged to someone my husband recognized, someone he feared. His lips barely moved as he mouthed the name. Her brother. A voice. A whisper. Soft, rhythmic, almost coaxing. But it wasn't the boy. And it wasn't my husband. My husband froze, one hand still gripping the doorknob, the other trembling so violently I could see the subtle shaking even in the dim light. Hearing that voice, that low, steady, familiar voice, made something inside him collapse. I touched his back gently. "We have to go in," I whispered. He nodded once, but his eyes were wide with something I'd never seen in him before. Old fear. The kind of fear that comes from a wound that never healed. He pushed the door open. Inside, the room was dim, a single lamp glowing on the bedside table. His son sat on the edge of the bed, small shoulders hunched, fists clenched around a folded piece of paper. His face was pale, lips bitten raw, but he was alone. No man, no shadow, no brother,
only silence. But the whisper we heard, it was unmistakable. It had been real.
My husband's voice was soft, but urgent. "Buddy, who were you talking to?" The boy didn't look up. His small chest rose and fell in short, uneven breaths. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "I wasn't talking. I was listening." My heart clenched. "To who?" my husband asked, kneeling in front of him. Slowly, the boy lifted the letter, the first letter, the one he wasn't supposed to have, written months before. The paper trembled in his hand. "I heard Mom," he said. The room went still. My husband swallowed hard. You heard her?" He nodded, eyes glistening. "When I read it, it's like she was right here, talking, whispering. I can hear her every time I read it." My husband looked at me, not with disbelief, but with devastation. Because a child's grief can bend reality in ways adults can't understand. Pain can make memories sound like voices. Fear can turn silence into warnings. Then the boy added quietly, "And I hear him too." My husband's entire body stiffened. The boy kept speaking, gaze dropping to his feet. "Mom said Uncle Daniel would come one day. She said he wanted to protect me. She said he knew things Dad didn't tell us." My husband exhaled sharply, almost collapsing forward. "That's not true. He twisted everything. She was sick." "No." The boy finally looked up, and what I saw in his eyes made my breath catch. Not anger, not confusion. Conviction. "He said you hurt her." My husband's face crumpled. "I didn't," he said, a broken whisper. "I swear to you, buddy, I didn't. I should have done more. I should have acted sooner, but I never hurt her." His son stared at him for a long moment, long enough for the guilt, the grief, the shattered years to settle between them like dust. Then the boy's lips trembled. "But she said in the letter that you weren't there." My husband wiped his eyes. "No, I wasn't. I failed her, and I'll regret it every day. But I never hurt her." We all stood there in that fragile silence, 3 people tied together by a loss none of us fully understood, a family made of fractures, trying to rebuild something that had fallen apart long before I ever entered their lives. I knelt beside them, touching the boy's hand gently. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "sometimes the things we hear when we're hurting aren't messages, they're fears. They sound real, but they're coming from the same pain we're trying to understand." He looked down at the letter, gripping it tighter. "My uncle said Dad shouldn't raise me." My stomach twisted. "When did he tell you that?" The boy slowly turned toward the window. Snowflakes drifted past the glass in slow, peaceful spirals, completely at odds with the tension in the room. "The day he brought the first letter," he whispered. "He was outside, by the gate. He told me not to tell anyone. He said Dad had secrets." My husband stood up abruptly, jaw clenching, eyes burning with something fierce and protective. "He came here? He talked to you?" he demanded. The boy nodded. I grabbed my husband's hand before he could storm out. "Wait, listen." The boy looked torn, lips pressed hard together as if holding back another truth. Finally, he whispered, "I didn't open the gift downstairs because I thought it was from him."
Every part of me softened. Oh, sweetheart. He swallowed, eyes welling again. I thought if I opened it, everything would get worse. Like in the letters, like he said it would. My husband knelt again, pulling his son into his arms. This time, the boy didn't resist. He pressed his face into his father's chest and sobbed, deep, shaking sobs that came from a place no child should ever have to reach. My husband stroked his hair, voice cracking. I'm here. I'm here. No more secrets. No more hiding. No more fear. I'm so sorry for everything you didn't understand, for everything I should have explained years ago. I felt tears sting my own eyes. After a long moment, the boy lifted his head. What was the present you gave me? My husband gently reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key, simple, silver, glowing softly in the lamplight. This, he said. It's the key to her music box, the one she kept in the attic. She left it for you, not him, not anyone else. The boy stared at it, breath hitching. She wanted you to remember her voice, not through fear, but through music. The boy took the key with trembling fingers, and for the first time that day, maybe the first time in months, he smiled. Small, fragile, but real. My husband pulled him into another hug, burying his face in his son's shoulder. Outside, the wind pressed softly against the window. The house, once echoing with fear and suspicion, felt warmer, quieter, safer. The shadows that once seemed alive were just shadows again. When we finally turned off the lamp and tucked him into bed, the boy whispered, "Dad? I don't hear his voice anymore." My husband exhaled shakily. "Good," he whispered back. "You won't." And he was right. Because sometimes the worst ghosts aren't supernatural. They're the memories we misunderstand, the secrets we fear, and the voices we let live inside our heads. As we closed the door and walked downstairs, hand in hand, the last thought that settled over me was this: families don't fall apart because of one tragedy. They fall apart because no one tells the truth soon enough. But that night, Christmas night, the truth finally came home. And for the first time, so did we.